Let's pray together one more time. Father God, your heart for us does not change, and for that we are grateful. Amen. So, happy Sabbath, everyone. Welcome to One Place. I am not one of the typical rotating faces that you see up here of our 4 teaching pastors. My name is Emily Carlson, and I started attending One Place about a year and a half ago, I would say. I've lived here for about 2 years. And it kind of started out because I worked for Pastor Dave, our senior pastor. And at one point, so I would like come to support, because he would preach every once in a while. And at one point, he mentioned to our former intern pastor, Kyle, she's kind of organized. And so Kyle was like, okay, so you're going to coordinate communion for us? And I was like, all right. So that turned into helping Kyle with some administrative things, and then that turned into helping Nick with some of the creative elements of the service. And then all of a sudden, I got roped into like sitting on the pastoral team meeting and being involved in that way. So a couple weeks ago, I got an email from Nick saying, here's the dates that we need to fill for somebody to preach when our pastors are going to be gone, and let me know what works for you. So here's the thing. I get a lot of emails about One Place from Nick, and so I thought he was just like CCing me so that I knew like who he was asking and what dates needed to be filled. Okay, so no, that was not what he was asking. He was asking me to preach. And my initial thought was like, no way. Like, I'm a teacher, that's my background, elementary education, but the idea of preaching, like, I have no interest in doing that at all. Well, here we are. So, yeah, the reason why I decided to say yes, there's a couple reasons. The first reason is because this worship community is my family. And if I'm going to preach my first sermon somewhere, it's going to be at One Place because I feel comfortable here. And I hope that that's the same for you, that you feel comfortable here. In fact, about 6 months ago, I accepted a job to work at Andrews full-time, and as is typical of myself, I made a pros and cons list. And the cons were like winter in Michigan. That was pretty much it. And then the pros were full-time benefits like vision and dental, that kind of stuff, and then One Place. And so there's no place that I would rather be coming Sabbath after Sabbath to worship with you. The second reason is because when I was in undergrad, there was a mentor of mine that taught me about the unchanging heart of Jesus. And she does not have an MDiv, but I think that it is her example that gave me the bravery to be up here today. So, as I mentioned, I am a teacher, and so we're gonna do a little activity that I would do with my students. It's called Think, Pair, Share. It's something that we've done, and we've done similar things here at One Place before, so it's not too hard, I promise. So as I'm talking right now, you're probably gonna wanna start having like the I conversations. Do you guys know about this? Like in elementary school, did you ever do this? When the teacher started explaining like, okay, boys and girls, we're gonna be doing this activity and you're gonna need to be in partners. We would immediately start like having conversations with our eyes with people like, do you wanna be my partner? Okay. Like, you probably wanted either your best friend or the really smart kid, depending on what the project was. And so, but there were some kids that, man, they tried to make eye contact with people, but it just never really happened for them. Like people would kind of be like, not making eye contact, or like, no, I'm already with so-and-so. And so we don't act like that here at One Place. So if you see somebody that isn't partnered up, that isn't in a pair, make them a trio or a group of 4, and be sure to make sure that everybody's included. So first you think about the answer to the question I'm gonna ask, and then you're gonna pair up with someone and talk about it within your pair, your small group. And then we're gonna share. We're gonna, I'll take a couple of answers just kind of from the audience, and then being the teacher that I am, I brought some show and tell items, so I will be sharing mine as well. So here is the question for you. What is one thing, it may be music, style, language, whatever, that you thought was cool a few years ago, but think is totally lame today? So something that was cool, now you think it's lame. Okay, ready, go. Think about it, find a partner, talk together. About 30 more seconds to wrap it up. 30 more seconds. Okay, let's see what we came up with. We'll take a couple. If there's anybody that's really brave, up here, they're really excited about sharing, so go ahead.
Okay, we talked about like in junior high when we wore our backpacks low. Now we wear them up high. The one strap, and
Yeah.
we both wear both straps.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of permanently a little bit like there's a little scoliosis just from the one strap. I would have so many bags, or like books in the backpack, but yeah, I get you. Yeah, anybody else? Jayla? Oh, okay. No offense to anyone that currently drives a PT Cruiser, but yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, Eddie, you got one too? Cargo shorts. Also dangerous territory. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's take one more right here. Walkmans. Okay. All right. With the earphones that went over your head and over your ears. Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. I'm with you. Well, I brought a couple things. The first one is the Beanie Baby. These were like all the rage in the 90s. So much so, do you remember how like people would get crazy? They would like release a new one and it was a big deal and then everybody had to get it and there was a limited number and blah, blah, blah. My mother thought that she was going to put my sister and I through college by selling our Beanie Baby collections. That didn't happen. Actually, my entire collection of Beanie Babies is scattered throughout Ecuador. I took it in high school on a mission trip and, gave all my Beanie Babies away. So, yeah, didn't pay for college. The next one, leg warmers. I was born in the late 80s, so I did not get the joy of this experience, but some of you did. I've seen pictures. The last one is not something I share very often. These, ladies and gentlemen, are Emily's glasses from 5th grade. Ready for that? Oh, rough, yeah. There's a reason why these have not seen the light of day since 1999. Okay, so each year hundreds of new words and are created to describe different things like technology, language, music, clothing styles that we're coming up with. Things are constantly changing. But the one thing that doesn't change is God. So go ahead and follow me to Psalms 33. That's where we're going to be staying today, starting at verse 11. We'll try and throw it up on the screen for you, and you can follow along with me. David writes this: "The plans of the Lord stand firm forever. His intentions are the same for every generation." So why is that important? Well, the theologian A.W. Pink writes, "Human nature can't be relied upon, but God can. However unstable I may be, however fickle my friends may prove, God doesn't change. If he varied like we do, if he willed one thing today and another tomorrow, if he were impulsive, who could trust him?" So let's be back in Teacher Emily's classroom for a minute. We're going to do a little vocabulary. The concept that we're talking about here is that God is immutable. So immutable means simply something that cannot be changed. So God's character, his covenant promises to us, they're not changing. They actually cannot change. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and discover that God was like, "Oh, hey, that grace thing, I'm just not really into that anymore." That's not going to happen. So one of my students' favorite things to do during Bible class, usually to get me off track so that they wouldn't have to study their memory verse, was to ask a question about the origins of God, right? So this is kind of how it would go. And be like, "Miss Carlson, so I was wondering how was it that God always existed? And that was such a hard question to answer. And my best and honest answer was, I don't know. Like, I don't get it. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around too. And the thing that is just kind of the best part about this mind-boggling concept is that because he has always existed, he can't be anything but who he is. He can't be infinite and also change. Because he's infinite, he's also immutable. And they're mutually supportive of each other. So when you think about God always existing, never changing, up there in heaven, he has seen everything. Everything, right? So David keeps going in verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, whose people he has chosen as his own. The Lord gazes down upon mankind from heaven where he lives. He has made their hearts and closely watches everything that they do. He sees it all. And it doesn't change how he feels about us, which is unbelievable. Since Father's Day is tomorrow, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about my dad. Did you guys remember that it was Father's Day? We did the little activity earlier, but I hope that you sent a card or bought a tie or a hammer or something along those lines. But make sure that you do it if you haven't already, okay? So, my dad, he's my favorite, and I don't care if anybody knows about it. He is like the most caring, servant-hearted person that I know. When I go home for breaks, he's a nurse practitioner. He works long hours. He doesn't have a lot of time off, and Sundays are usually reserved for mowing the lawn or doing chores and those kind of things. So he doesn't have a lot of downtime. And so I'll come home from break, and he will sneakily get my car keys. And this is usually while I'm sleeping or binge watching TV shows or something equally as lazy. He will take his time and he will go and he will vacuum and wash and wax my car. And he will take it and fill it up with gas so that I have a full tank for my ride home. And he has played chauffeur for over half of my life. I didn't have a car in high school, so he would drive me everywhere. I scratched the bumper of his car at age 16. I hysterically cried ugly face tears on multiple occasions for reasons that I do not remember. And he even moved all of my earthly possessions across the United States 3 separate times. He has seen everything. He has seen selfish Emily. He has seen pack rat Emily. He has seen makes poor decisions Emily. He has seen hasn't washed her hair in 4 days Emily. He has seriously seen it all, and somehow it doesn't change the way that he feels about me. And that's just my Father. So how much more does your Father in heaven care about you? You can tell here in Psalms that David gets this idea. He of all people has taken full advantage of this concept of the immutable God. People refer to David as a man after God's own heart. And you know what that tells us? That in order to be a man after God's own heart, David had to know that heart. Who better to tell us about the heart of God than this man that, despite enormous screw-ups and poor decision-making, knows God's heart. Because David knew God's heart, everything had different meaning for him. So when he sinned, it wasn't just he was breaking a rule, it was betraying a relationship. When he repented, it wasn't just admitting guilt for something that he'd done wrong. David was sorrowing over personal betrayal. And when he sought God's forgiveness, he didn't just view it as the canceling of a penalty. He knew that forgiveness is the renewing of fellowship. So the more that I learn about God, the more that I'm convinced that I don't hardly know anything about him. And that's not to say that he's unknowable. I'm just made painfully aware that there's so much more to know about him. But the one thing that I think is abundantly clear in this passage is that his heart for me is knowable. His intentions for me haven't changed. His intentions for the Israelites, for David, for the people of the Middle Ages, for your grandparents, for you, hasn't changed. He wants to be connected to us. He wants us to live out these incredible plans that he has for our lives. So I remember when I was, probably like 6 or 7, it was a Sabbath afternoon, and my family went on a walk with a couple other families from church. And if I remember correctly, there was a lot of kids there, but there was nobody really my age. It was more like kids my sister's age. She's 3.5 years older than I am. And so the big kids were kind of like going ahead up at the front, and then the adults were kind of in a group, and I was somewhere in the middle. I would like go up and run up with the big kids, and then I'd come back, and I might like go off to the side and look at like a flower or a bug or something, I don't know. But at one point, I think I had gone a little too far than was comfortable for my parents, and so my dad called to me to come back and join the group. And so I ran straight for his hand. Like I ran to find him and to hold my dad's hand. And the thing that you need to know about Tim Carlson is that he's a hard guy to miss. My dad is tall. He is 6'4". Like I come by my height, honestly. And so he's hard to miss. And so I go up to grab his hand, and I kind of do one of these, like I slide my little hand down his wrist and tuck my hand in his, except immediately, without even looking up, I knew that that was not my dad's hand. I was not holding on to my dad's hand because I know what my dad's hand felt like, and it was not the one that I was holding. And so I looked up, I realized that I had grabbed the hand of the only other dad in the group that was like the tall and large dad, right? And I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. Like I'm even thinking about it right now. Like I can feel like that. Like I was so embarrassed. And this guy was really nice. I mean, he just kind of smiled at me, and he was probably like, "What is she doing?" Like, but you know, it was fine. But the thing is that was not my dad. My dad loves me. My dad wants the very best of things for me. He wants me to be happy and whole and serving Jesus with all of my heart. He knows the things that make me anxious. He knows what I'm afraid of. He knows my favorite ice cream flavor. He has the best of intentions for me. And I know that about my dad because I know his heart. I know what his hand feels like. And I know the sound of his voice, and that Hallmark movies are his guilty pleasure, which I probably shouldn't be telling this many people that. But I know all of those things because I've spent time with him. And isn't that exactly how we should be with Jesus? Like, how can we doubt him if we've spent even a little bit of time with him? Like his heart, his intentions are the same for every single generation. His intentions for you cannot be shaken. No one is going to change his mind about the way that he feels about you and the things that he wants for your life. You are seen by a God who made you. So this is what I want you to mull over this week. Like, don't leave here without being challenged by this thought. That if God doesn't change and his plans stand firm, what difference does that make in your relationship with him? Do you know his unchanging heart for you? And does it make a difference? I sure hope that it does. So I'm going to read the final words that David wrote in chapter 33, kind of as a prayer over you today, starting in verse 20. We wait and hope for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. In him our hearts rejoice, for we trust in his holy name. May your unfailing love be with us, Lord, even as we put our hope in you. Amen. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Happy Sabbath to everyone. We will be cleaning up afterwards, and these chairs don't put themselves away. So we would love for you to just stop by, grab a couple of chairs, see what you can do to help as we clean up so that everybody can get onto their Sabbath, hopefully get a little time at the beach today, and enjoy this day together. Happy Sabbath. Go in peace.